Alright, so this is my mobile app. It's called ClearTheCupboard, and it's an upgrade from the previous version. So the previous version was a Kotlin console app, and that's why you'll still see some remnants of that. It's a pantry recipe finder in here, but I did change, like in the manifest and stuff, it does say ClearTheCupboard. I just didn't want to spend too much time going back and redoing everything that way, but eventually if I have time I'll make sure the names are consistent all the way through. So on this first screen, basically the user can enter their ingredients. And actually this was really cool because I was able to sync my phone, use the developer tools to do this. So I thought it was pretty cool. I was excited about that, and so I'm actually on my actual real phone right now, and so it's just, I don't know, this is really cool to me. It was exciting. Let's see, potatoes, tomatoes. So if we add that, what else? Sour cream. Okay, so there's a couple of different items, and this is that first screen, so my pantry. And then when the user clicks to find recipes, it takes them to the second screen showing these lists of recipes, and then if you click on the recipes, it will show the instructions. We can go back to the list, and saucy shredded barbecue. Okay, and so you can see there is some problems still with the formatting. I had some challenges with the API a little bit. I could tell. So Spoonacular, the API I'm using, when I built the console app, I used the pretty simple endpoint, the API endpoint, which was find ingredients. And basically it was because it was a bit more simple and didn't have as many parameters or other items it could return, it was a lot easier to work with. It would just show you the ingredients that you have that you could use and the ones that you were missing. But I had some difficulty because this API endpoint in order to make this app a bit more functional and incorporate some features I wanted to, I had to use this other endpoint called complex search from Spoonacular. And so unfortunately the formatting and the way that the instructions come back is not, I found it was not as consistent as I would like. So that's something that will eventually need some enhancement. And same thing here, you can see, like, I didn't ever mention muffins, but it seems to think that when I put in the pantry, somehow muffin tins, I spent some time trying to troubleshoot some things there, and it just was beyond, it was just going to take too long, so I had to finally just let some stuff go. But yeah, I never put that I had hamburger buns. I did indicate eggs, garlic. Yeah, anyway, so I know there's a few things I can do to improve that, but I just know it's going to take a bit more time, and I just wish their API had a bit better documentation and a little more consistency. So I'll have to determine later, what to do about that. But anyway, so that is basically the app, and yeah, it's on my phone. It's really cool. So let's go look at the code real quick. So our entry point, I know that this should be using MVVM, but again, I just wanted a minimal viable product, so I did put everything basically in the main activity, including all the screens, but later on I can go fix that. So we create our HTTP client here. Obviously we're going to get back JSON, and then in case there are unexpected fields or anything changes in the API that Spoonacular uses, I just added this additional stuff, and in case there's unknown keys. So our entry point, of course, is on create. So ClearTheCupboard, that's the name, and then we create this consistent look for the surface, the background and color scheme. And then let's see, did clean up resources here. Alright, so our app navigation basically creates the nav graph, and like I said, there are 3 screens like you saw. So in order to do this, I didn't use local store. Well, I didn't use some other things. In this case, I just used the hoisting state. Um, again, just to get minimal viable product. Later on, I can go back and change, but we want to keep the state. We want to make it persist from each screen, from pantry to recipes to recipe instructions. So that's what we're doing here. And then use the nav host for navigation graphs, like I said. So you can see the different screens, the pantry screen, the recipe list screen, and the recipe detail screen. And the navigation there. Our pantry screen, so the recipe, let's see, recipe service, where did I wrap that? Oh, yeah, I just wrapped it so it'll be a little bit easier because we're going to use that for the searching and fetching instructions. So it's recipe service, and this is basically just the formatting, the look of it, the size, the way things are. I did learn some things about making sure you have padding so that the find recipes was not hidden below the navigation bars. And again, so it's our styling and formatting, basically everything's going to look. We want to make sure that it's not blank, that we don't get, that we're not, that if we click on it, we're not going to get back, like we can't, that the person isn't entering blank ingredients. And I actually need to make a change to this because I do know from testing that right now a user can enter, so I know there needs to be a bit more robust error handling and some other things added, again, just trying to do the minimal viable product. But I did do some testing, and right now a user can enter things that aren't actually ingredients, like A, B, C, D, or a bunch of letters or numbers, and that obviously is not good user experience. So yeah, I need to fix that. You saw that there was an add button. We're using that icon, and then also when the ingredients were listed in the pantry, there was a trash can on the right side so that the ingredients could be removed. So yeah, there's that. Just gonna skip along a little bit, and we need to make sure that the ingredients are formatted correctly for the API call. So we need to make sure that there's, again, nothing's blank, and that it's trimmed and in the comma separated format. So there's that, and I did include some error handling, but again, it's just not very robust, and I know that. But again, that was sort of just for the sake of time. And then our recipe list screen, we saw that it's clickable and it shows used and missed ingredients. So I do need to look again and try to figure out what's going on with why sometimes when you enter certain ingredients, it gives recipes that it thinks you gave the ingredient for. And again, formatting, we need to make sure that is correct. Trying to think what else we need. So we've got our buttons for each screen, so we can go back to the pantry. And again, yeah. This was so that it's somewhat asynchronous, so that our UI doesn't, while we're trying to get recipe instructions, just in case they're too long or whatever, we're not, it shouldn't cause an issue, but if there was like a long recipe or lots of recipes, so this is asynchronous to make sure that we get back the instructions and that there's some indication to the user of what's happening there. The column is scrollable, like the recipes were scrollable, so you could scroll down and however many. In this case, so yeah, let's go over and take a look at the recipe models and recipe client. So we wanted to make sure that everything's formatted correctly using the Kotlin Serialization and creating a data class for the ingredients and the recipe, making sure that everything's formatted correctly in case there is something that's null. Let's see, where was I was going to go? Yeah, so since there is a quota, there's a 50 points per day quota for the free version of the API, and then each call adds an additional like 0.1 or 0.06, whatever, depending on how many parameters you set up. I set it to a base of 10 just so that the user can see a decent amount of recipes Eventually I would change this so that the free version of the app would give like 10 recipes, but a paid version could give back more, and it wouldn't go push past the quota. And this again is formatting for, or this is our API call, so using the complex search. I had some challenges again, like I said, because some recipes don't have instructions. Most do, but again, they're not formatted consistently, so that made things a little bit challenging. I did end up having to add this other API call. I was trying to avoid that, but had to add it so that the user can actually get the ingredients or the instructions for the recipe. So there does have to be another call using the ID of the recipe. If I had more time to test this, I would be able to see if somehow it's supposed to have come back in the add recipe instructions. I ran a lot of testing and did some debugging, but again, I couldn't get it to be consistent enough, so it was just easier to add this secondary. And some resources that I read and stuff said it would be better and easier anyways just to do this here. One other thing, I did create this build config, so that's where the Spoonacular key is kept and it's hidden. And then I had to learn about making sure to sync all the Gradle stuff and add the dependencies and update the libraries, which was definitely a lot to learn, and a whole lot of imports. Took a bit to figure that out. So anyway, that is my ClearTheCupboard Android Studio app. So thank you very much.